Some say it's no place like home. I say there's no place like Elliot's Law. Welcome to another edition, episode, whatever you want to call it, show of When Black Men Talk. This one's based on Common Ground. And by now, you should have an idea when I say Common Ground, what we're kind of going to be doing. Basically, I invite someone in, usually of a female companion for the most part, and we kind of talk about different forms of relationships, not in a sense of a battle, but in a sense of basically trying to get to a common ground, taking, exploring some different things that go on throughout relationships that may be healthy for or unhealthy. And that's basically the foundation. So when you hear that word common ground and you realize you're listening to One Black Man Talk, it's going to be built around that. Let me also take time out to thank again for folks that are listening in a lot of different places. Man, it's just, again, it's mind blowing to an extent. I mean, foreign countries, some places that when I look, my eyes stretch. And again, we're growing into different cities in the United States. I always want to thank anyone and everyone that decides to give us an ear and come back and go through the list of shows that we have. Sometimes I look at some of the catalogs that of shows that we have done, and I'm a little amazed. So I appreciate you going back and listening to old shows. Thank you much. I want to welcome in Lady Marcy, I call her, but reality, if you want to address her and you're not me, you want to call her Dr. Marcy Baptiste. How are you?
I'm good. Why does that make me giggle every time I hear you say that? I'm
I'm not sure.
fantastic. I'm fantastic.
Good,
Thanks for
good.
inviting me into the loft, sir.
Oh, come on now. You know, at some point we're just gonna give you a key. That's what we're gonna do. At some point we're gonna just, just you come and go as you please. But to this episode, I wanted to move into marriage because I think the last episode you were speaking, and I think you said you were married for 16, 17 years. I did 9 years time, 8, 9 years time. I did that, and I did that stint. I don't. I'm assuming that you didn't remarry. I haven't either. And I think marriage, to an extent, when we're coming up as kids, we look at it one way, and once you experience it or you haven't experienced it, I think as you start to grow in age, you start to look at marriage a little different. Some, not all. But the reality is, a lot of people are basically, for the most part, putting marriage on layaway. The younger generations, a lot of them are basically not, running out to get to cross jump over the broom. They're not getting married at a younger age. And ironically, some of the people that are married over 50 and 60 are walking away from their marriages.
Hmm.
And when you think about it, I would wonder to an extent, has marriage lost its luster? I'll start there. You think marriage has kind of lost its luster in a sense?
That's an interesting question. I think that societal beliefs overall have shifted. And I think that for a long time, we had a very limited scope as to what marriage looked like. And we were really relegated to what do we see around us? What's in our environment? And for most of us, that was dating or marriage. You were either single, dating, or married. And I think a lot of us, 90s babies, 80s, 70s babies, we were all raised with the belief that marriage was the goal. And I think that when the internet came along, sometimes we make our choices based on just what we're exposed to. And when you look at even cultural differences between like Middle Eastern culture with arranged marriages, things like that, that's typical there. That's not typical over here. And so environment, I think, plays a heavy factor in it. And what we see, and then also what we believe. And so I feel like the internet came along and gave us a wide view of other alternatives. And sometimes we're only as faithful as our options. So if we only think
Hmm.
the option is to stay single or get married, then marriage becomes a goal. But then when you start looking and seeing people thriving, living single lives, you see shifts and pivots moving into same sex relationships, gender differences, gender identities. Some of that plays a factor in it. And then we see plural marriages being kind of explored. We see the whole poly revolution taking place. And so I just feel like people think that there's more options out there. And then I also think that divorce at one point had such a negative stigma to it that we would stay in it when we shouldn't, perhaps. And now, I was just having a conversation with one of my good friends, and she said, for her, divorce was uh, a wellness choice because her relationship had no longer it was no longer safe to stay in. And so I think we see divorce now as an option, not necessarily nobody wants to get married to get divorced, but I don't think that we have this belief that just because we're in it, we have to stay in it, even if we're unhappy and that sort of thing. And nor do we have to enter into it if we don't have a perceived benefit. So I think there's a lot of different things. I don't necessarily think that it's just the luster. I just think that there are a lot of different factors to consider that we never thought were factors to be considered, or that it was even an option to consider anything else.
Yeah, you cover a lot there, a lot of good stuff that was covered. Yeah, I think there's a lot of options. I think too, I'll go back to when I think I no, when I think when I know I was a younger man, and the perception for most men, for the most part, we're not raised to come up and be married. It's not fed to us. It's an assumption that you at some point will start a family, find a wife, start a family, and become married. It's not really sold to us. It's not really driven to us. It's not really given to us. We can see it for the most part around us. If we grew up in a household where mom and dad was together, for the most part, that's like your first example, your first illustration. Okay, at some point I will venture into this. On the other hand, with little girls, a lot of times has been where it's been told to them at a young age to do X, Y, Z. You do this, you want to find that, you want to marry this, bang, bang, bang. Even where the old time thing, marry, go find a doctor to marry. We were never told to marry, you know, a physician, this and that. So a lot of men basically went into marriage in a sense because they felt was the necessary thing to do. That you find someone you care about, you love her, and you want to have children. This is okay. This is like the proper order what to do. And what I've noticed over the years, a lot of men have walked that path and then accomplished that and then realize that's not where they want to be.
Hmm.
Now they may not say it verbally, but they'll show it to you. They'll find a way not to be home. They'll find a way not to be involved. They'll find a way to kind of basically turn their way or turn their back to what's going on inside the marriage and the relationship. Is because they're putting themselves in a place where that's not where they really wanted to be, but they assume this is what I should do.
Hmm.
And it may sound harsh, but that has been a role for a lot of men. And then if men have gotten into marriages that weren't really healthy, for the most part, if they did get divorced, they came out and some were bitter for the most part, and some basically carried that bitterness along and they moved it on either to another relationship or another marriage, or they came out yelling and screaming to where they basically told a flock of other men, this is not what you want to do. It's not cut out to what you think it is. And for the most part, that has kind of circulated around a lot of men. I remember years ago at work, this young cat was thinking about getting married, and everybody was hammering. Most of the guys hammering, "Don't do it." Don't. I mean, a lot of these guys are married men. They weren't joking. They were honestly talking. Because him and I was sitting there at the table one day with another guy. Another gentleman was a little older than me, and he was married. And I said to him, "You can't hear any of that. You have to do your own trail. If you found someone that you want to make your wife, that's your choice. That's your decision. Don't let other people, their mistakes they might have made in their marriage or what happened to them, fall into your eardrum and your mindset. Create your own. Don't listen to them." And some people were saying to him the job, saying him the job will cause the job doesn't cause anybody to get a divorce. They made decisions and choices which led to divorce. I mean divorce. So
Hmm.
I had that conversation with him, and years later, after a few kids, him and his wife are still going strong, which I'm happy to see. So that happens a lot too. We as men, we tend to get influenced sometimes what others happens. I remember, as a young boy, and Johnny Carson when he got divorced, and this was the thing when Johnny Carson got divorced, his wife got, let's say he had $40 million he assumed over a period of time working, and she got half.
Mm-hmm.
And for most men, we sit back and looked at how the heck does we didn't really think deep about it. All we heard is that she walked away with $20 million and money that we assume he made, and we didn't look at all the deepness of it to where she was his wife, she was home. We didn't think about all those things, so we started to think, damn, I don't want that to happen to me. Not that I'm gonna make $40 million, but we started to associate and attach certain things to marriage that probably shouldn't have been attached to it. So when I look at it that way from a male's perspective, that's where I believe a lot sometimes marriage has lost its luster. And there's a religious aspect, and I'm not really going to speak to that, but I think, if you don't merge that with it, yeah, marriage has kind of lost its luster. And, people have learned to be all right alone, okay
Mm-hmm.
alone. And basically, as you spoke earlier about the options, if it's, we have different options, different, they choose different things. And ironically, I think, people have sought just, well, if I don't do it, it's almost like some women choose not to have children. If I don't do it, there's nothing less of me. Doesn't mean that I'm any less of a human being or less of a man or a woman. But, and I remember years ago, I worked with this one cat. If I remember correctly, was Indian. And this is my early 20s. He was a little older than me at the time. But his family brought him and his bride together. They never met prior to getting married, didn't really know
Mm-hmm.
each other. And the family basically said, looked at his family and out of what they thought had them to wed. And to me, they were living successfully.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow. I said, so you're the changed? He said, no. He said, no, I didn't know her, blah, blah, blah. And they started from square one. So I want to roll that into a question because a lot of times, in a sense, we spend time trying to get to know individuals to an extent, and we do that and we move. And I think a lot of times when we're dating, and to go get, we're dating and the step before marriage, the engagement, all that stuff, it's almost like a due process. We go through it. We're not really paying attention, in my mind, who we're marrying. We're just taking the steps. Okay, I known you for about a year, so maybe the second year I put a ring on your finger, all that other stuff. Not really paying attention to who this person is. And then once we kind of, jump over the broom, we realize, damn, this is what I married. So with that in mind, I look at, someone that like spoke of this gentleman here and his wife, they came together based on what their family thought was best for them. And what I liked about that when I really started looking at it, is that when that happened, they felt more of an obligation to make it work. Because in a way, they did not want to let their parents down, their families down. So they kind of felt a reason. They kind of bought more in to, like, you know what? Yes, I don't know her, but I'm going to learn her. I'm going to learn to understand what I need to be. And the same as she. And it's, there are a lot of marriages that start off that way that last a long period of time. So I want to get your reaction to it because maybe, just maybe, here in the States, we might be going about the wrong way. What's the possibility?
So I kind of alluded to that earlier when I was referring to, like Middle Eastern culture and things like that. So you have to realize that when they arrange those marriages, for one thing, an arranged marriage removes the emotion out of it. So in our culture, Western culture, we're getting married because we love, we have feelings, we want to be happy. That's not a factor in that. It's what's best for the family, what's best for the structure. Um, Financially, do the families align? Do the belief systems align? And those are things that in Western culture, when we're looking at how we view marriage, we don't necessarily take that into consideration when you look at all the conversations around, like, how what's your relationship like with your in-laws. That's not a factor in those arranged marriages because the families have already come together and made agreements, and so it eliminates a lot of the things that are contentious in a lot of ways. And to your point, they don't want to disappoint their family, so there's different value systems. There's different objectives for marriages. I think in Western culture in the US we don't have really a reason for getting married. What, why are we doing this? Aside from, I love this person, they make me happy, and whatever. But we don't have anything foundationally to say this is why we're a good fit. And oftentimes we don't even ask the tough questions about people's upbringings and their belief systems, their self belief, and how they handle anger. How do you handle communication? How do you handle conflict? How do you handle, what is your beliefs about raising children? All those things. And in arranged marriages, all that stuff is considered before those two individuals are ever, the families ever decide that this is a good choice. So I think that that plays also very heavily into why those relationships tend to be more successful, because they're going in it with the expectation that we need to make this work. This is what we do. This is culturally, this is what we do. And then our belief systems, they don't, there's not a belief in divorce. So again, we go back to what are my options in those circumstances. A lot of times they don't believe that that is an option. And I had a friend of mine, he was Tanzanian, and he went to college, came to the US, went to college. I think he went to boarding school in the UK and then came to the US to go to college. Worked in the US for a number of years, dated, adopted US American culture as far as that kind of stuff goes. And he had a number of bad relationships. And I remember talking to him shortly before he moved back home. And I said, so what do you think, the next, 3 years look like for you? He said, I think I'm gonna go back home and probably let my parents arrange my marriage. And, he had this little playboy reputation, and he was out there knocking them down. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, I think so. And I see him on social media now, and he's got, two kids, and his marriage was arranged. They're very happy from, what you see. Obviously, you see the highlight reels on social media, but uh, all things look good. And so I just feel like there's sort of just a shift in culturally, where we're saying, yeah, marriage it's not the requirement that it was once. And we just have different belief systems surrounding marriage and divorce. And you remove a lot of those stumbling blocks when someone else arranges your marriage. It's no longer, oh, you told me this or you told me that. So things that we argue about in relationships, you're not arguing about those things because you didn't even know each other. So you've never had those conversations. So you have to know each other and learn each other and figure it out.
I like that part, figure it out. I really do. It brings me to something I saw a while ago, and I took a picture of it, and I saved it. And it's and I when I took this picture, I'm thinking it was like 2 or 3 years ago, and ironically, I came across it again, looking at my gallery of photos another day, and it's a simple statement, but it's a potent statement, and it says a perfect marriage is just two imperfect people who refuse to give up on each other.
Hmm.
Just refuse, yeah. And if you think about it, we are imperfect. We work to be, we never will be. But that not giving up. And I'm not saying divorce is easy, but a lot of times I think we know that in the back of our mind, that's an option, that's an out.
Hmm.
And we don't think about, okay, not giving up, just basically. I mean, and I'm not saying there's some things going on that's detrimental to one of the parties. You just take that mindset, but in reality, I think we think, you go in, hey, if it's not, then I'll just kind of bang on and kind of move on and try it again. And if you have that mindset of not refusing to know, I'm gonna do what I got in them both, not just one, taking that mindset on, man, that to me is an amazing foundation for a marriage. And I remember when when I was married for the period of time that I was, and maybe early on, I would think, there've been times or thoughts from running my mind, Mark, you don't have to, and I was like, I couldn't allow myself to think that, because if I was to allow that to invade my mental space, I'm going to stop trying. And I
Mm-hmm.
never want to think that way or give that much thought, no matter how angry or frustrated I may have become. Because with that being said, then I'm not going to act the way I need to when I need to act. And I always try to keep that idea of divorce at bay. And when I open my mind up to it, I know that was this time to basically walk into that door. So that statement itself, on a get your opinion on it. A perfect marriage is just two imperfect people who refuse to give up on each other. Two, not one, two. Your thoughts, Lady Marcy.
A couple of thoughts come to mind. One is that you had talked about how boys are raised versus how girls are. And I feel like girls are raised with Disney values in that we are built up to look for our prince and or knight in shining armor, or prince on the white horse, whatever you want to call it. And so, to your point earlier, we grow up, thinking about the day and the dress and the husband and the two kids, the dog and the picket fence. Like that's what little girls think about oftentimes because that's what is shown to us, and that's think about the toys that we're given. Girls are given baby dolls with baby bottles versus, give me some electronics and let me figure out mathematics and STEM and things like that. So I think, do our daughters a detriment when it comes to that. But as it relates to the imperfect people, again, I think it kind of comes back to what are those values? And we have to sort of walk a fine line here because we have a lot of elders who would, have the don't blame Mr. Charlie mindset. Mr. Charlie out there in the streets doing what he do, maybe come home, might be abusive, might be this, might be that. And he's not refilling his wife's cup. He's not tending to the family. He's not putting structure and creating a stable environment that's conducive to raising a healthy family. And so we don't want to necessarily stay in that. So we have to be careful of saying just two imperfect people who refuse to give up. Sometimes your safety says, I'm not giving up, but I am going to do what's going to keep me safe. And so, you know me, but I'm a domestic violence advocate. So obviously, I'm going to take that approach in some aspects. However, all things being equal, everything being safe, then that was my original position to begin with, is that we we're as faithful as our opportunities. So if marriage is not on the table, it's not an option for us, and we go into that with that agreement and stay steadfast to that intention. But we also have to along the way nurture the marriage. We can't just that's not that in and of itself, not giving up isn't enough. You have to do more than just not give up. You have to be intentional about pouring into your partner, pouring into your marriage, and doing things that's going to allow you both to continue to grow and to develop, to have your own, freedom to have your own opinions, your own perspectives. We don't always have to agree, but we will come to an agreement. We'll come to, we'll get things in alignment somehow, and if not, then we'll make the compromises necessary. And sometimes I'm compromising, sometimes you are. So I think that it goes just a little bit deeper than just not giving up. A lot of times sometimes we hold on too long. Um, there's a saying, don't spend a lot of time holding on to a mistake because you spend a long time making the mistake. And I think sometimes we do that with marriages. I think sometimes we do that with a lot of things, but I just think we have to be real careful about casually throwing out terms like just refusing to give up, because does this still make sense? I feel like marriages should have, when they give you a marriage license, I feel like it should have a term on it, kind of like your driver's license. Like you got an expiration date, and we come in like, okay, it's good for 5 years. At the 5 year mark, let's tap in. How we both still feeling about this? Do we want to re
Oh
up for
my.
another five? And if not, you
Hmm.
walk away.
You know
But there's
what? You may
not
want.
there's no expectation with it. It's like, so I'm now, if I'm all into you and we're in this, and I know our 5 year mark is coming up, or I know I've got 5 years, I'm going to be more intentional versus, oh, death till us part. Oh, I got till death to get it right. So I'm going to trick off for a little bit over here and I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing.
Mm,
But if I only got 5 years and I know that you can opt out at 5, then month 59 ain't the
mm.
time to start doing right. You need to be doing right in month 1.
I'm going to say this later, Marge. I think you should patent that idea. I'm serious. Don't let somebody take that from you because I never thought of it that way. But you're right. It should be like it should be like really it's a marriage license, like your driver's license. You know,
Mm-hmm.
4 or 5 years, you read back up. You sit down and decide, you know, A, B, and C. Yeah, I mean, seriously, give us some thought because there might be money in them there hills. It just might be some fun, something in that idea.
Well, even
Um,
if you chose your term, you know what I mean? Like you could do that with term life insurance policies. You want a 3-year, a 5-year, 10-year. You know, how much, what's your risk tolerance for this look like? How much
oh
confidence do you have
my.
in this?
Oh my. I think for sure there'll be many more marriages. I think there'll be many more marriages. I really
Mhm.
do. I think you marry someone for 5 years and nah, it didn't work. I'm gonna marry another one. I think there'll be many more. Um, I want to throw something a mental thought out because I remember, you know, when this country experienced COVID a few years ago and couples had to be home with each other
Mhm.
for a period of time for a couple of weeks.
They were
Couldn't go
dropping like
anywhere.
flies. They was
Oh my
dropping like
goodness, man.
flies.
The battles that went on was amazing. And to me, underneath that, you know, really said, I can't imagine. Well, to me, it said to me that the person that you took these vows with, that you stood and took the covenant with, that you really don't like. Forget love. You don't like.
Mhm.
If I can't tolerate you for 2 weeks to be in we share a space that we've been sharing for years, and we're gonna have to fight about this and argue about that and go to terms. What have we been doing all this time? What have we really been building? What have we been experiencing? And I talked to a few friends and people that I knew that were married, and they were like, "We're constantly at each other's throat." And like I said earlier about the man kind of voice being home, now you're forced to be there. So I would have thought if my job said to me, I'm married, woman that I care about, I cherish, I love, I honor. And they say to me, "Hey, Mark, don't come in for 2 weeks. We'll see you in 15 days." Thank you. I get a chance to go home and be with her. The things that we could have accomplished and do and show each other affection, love, dedication for 14 days without thinking about leaving the house.
Mhm.
Lady Marcy, that to me should have been how that got turned up. But that got turned all the way down. Mentally, why? I want to be home. I just like, are you? Wow, that was to me that was shocking, super
'Cause
shocking.
we live life. We let life run us. We're not actively engaged in our lives. We're not actively engaged in our relationships. And that's why I said what I said a little bit ago that it's just not giving up's not enough. You have to be intentional about doing and loving and caring and supporting and being considerate and kind and all of the things that we would do to a stranger we don't do to our significant others. We don't treat them the same. We
But
just
why
assume
not? But why? I'm sorry to
'cause
interrupt you, but why not? Because they deserve it first.
about to tell you why. It's just like with kids. So little kids, when they're with their parents, they could be holy terrors. Them kids are bad as hell. But you take them over to auntie's house, they're different children. You take them over to their friend's house, they're different children. Like, oh no, little Billy, he was fine. He didn't know. He was polite, said please and thank you, picked up, offered to wash the dishes. And you like, whose child is this? Because they perceive that those relationships are conditional on behavior. They're conditional on how do I show up, and they're not guaranteed. Your parents, They're your parents. It's for life. So I don't have to be asked because you're not going to leave me. I don't have as much concern that I'm going to lose you based on how I show up or what behaviors I demonstrate. And I feel like marriage, I think that's why a lot of times when people are dating, they show up very differently. And then I've heard, especially guys, I've heard a lot of times say, "Man, something happened once we got married. She changed." I
Yeah.
got
Finish
you.
line.
You know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
I've got you. So I don't have to necessarily put on the the shiny face anymore. I don't have to do the things that I had to do, but same thing it took to get me is the same it's going to take to keep me quiet as it's kept. Then
Yeah.
I was going to say,
My,
you
my,
know, the pandemic, but so not only did it affect divorce rates, but literally domestic violence rates skyrocketed. So in the US, they went up by about 14%, and globally across the world, they increased by an average of 25 to 30%.
whoa.
Yeah. So that was a very telling time in our country as it relates to um, culturally and what happens behind closed doors. And so the same thing happens every year around the holidays. People are off work, money is tight, people are stressed. So all of the things that play into domestic violence or across the board in general. So money constraints, financial concerns, stress factors, trust factors, trust issues, lack of communication, inability to confront conflict, all of those types of things. So it happens the same every year during the holidays too. So from right before Thanksgiving through about January 4th or 5th, domestic violence rates go up every year in the US. And it's the same thing. They're off work, people are stressed out. You got in-laws coming, you got stuff going on with your family, you ain't got the money to buy gifts. And so we put all these pressures on ourselves, put all these pressures on our relationships, and we're just not built for it. We don't have the foundation to sustain that.
I've never liked the word stressed out. I just never did. To me, I think that's a cop out. Now, I'm not
No,
saying it doesn't exist, but if I tell myself I'm stressed out, then I'm stressed out. If I tell myself I can handle this, I'm going to handle it. So what? You feel some pressure. It doesn't give you a right to go strike someone. I just never, I've never liked the idea of that terminology, period. And I think it's allow us to basically dummy down our strength, our mental strength, in a sense, and feel like it's giving us an excuse to do dumb shit and act stupid, realistically, because we're never given more than what we can bear. So when we start to feel some pressure, deal with it, own it, work through it. This little cop out, I'm stressed out. I never wanted to hear it.
well,
I don't believe in it. Just my personal opinion.
no,
And
and
I
I'm not saying that I disagree, and I'm a big proponent of own your shit. You know what I mean?
yeah,
At the same time, if you don't have coping skills and that's what you grew up like, it's a whole different show, honestly.
I get
When
that.
stuff like that, but there it are those individuals who, when they feel, as you said, I don't care if you call it pressured or you call it stress, when they feel their back is against the wall, their immediate go-to is violence, and whoever is within striking distance. So whether it's your children or it's your significant other, whether it's a coworker, whether you've got road rage on the street, whether you're going in shooting up a bank, whether you're sitting on some rooftop doing a mass shooting. If people don't have the right coping skills and the right mindset, you've got mental illness and things that are taking place as well. People are unmedicated, they're just unwell in general. That all is going to play into that. And that's what you see, is just because that's just those types of situations where you're all on top of each other. Everybody has their own set of expectations, and people don't have coping skills.
I want to bring it back to what you said. I asked earlier. Why would someone be in a marriage and treat people better outside of the marriage. And I accept what you say. I just don't like it because, as I was stating earlier, your responsibility and your duty is to treat the person you're married to better first.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the work goes to, not someone else outside of it. And I'm gonna tell you, my kids ain't acting better somewhere else. They're not. So to me, if your kids are acting better somewhere else, I don't think you're raising them properly. Just my personal opinion. So
Mm-hmm.
I say that to tie back to the marriage. If you're treating people better outside of your spouse, then there's something wrong with you. You don't
Mm-hmm.
understand the nature of your relationship,
Preach.
and there's some things going on that really need to be attended to. Because
Well,
again, I believe
well,
when you stand and take the vows, this is the person you should be treating better, the best. I'm not saying we else get treated like hell, but this is the person that should be getting that from you. Trying to
mhm.
press someone outside your doors makes no sense to me. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But why we get married? People get married
Well,
for reasons, and I think that plays into why you would treat someone outside the relationship better. If the marriage was never truly your desire, then we're off to behind the eight ball to from jump. You might as well not. You might as well stay on the other side of the broom. Don't even jump it. But people do, but they're going into it for a variety of different reasons. Some people just need stable housing. Some people just need, they've got these kids and you got parental pressures. You got, uh, they're still pressuring young kids when they get pregnant, out of wedlock. Oh, you need to get married. You need to get married without ever looking like, is this person even marriage material? Just because they had sperm and their sperm fertilized my egg doesn't make them marriage material. And so we're getting married, I think, for the wrong reasons in a lot of cases. And people don't want to be in it. That's the bottom.
yeah,
Like you said,
no,
them.
yeah. Yeah, we are getting married for a lot of variety of reasons. He went to Jared is a reason, and
I mean,
I look at. I'm sorry.
like
Go ahead.
I said, depending on what that rock looks like, you know what I'm saying?
There it is. He went to Jared. This gentleman that I know, his daughter decided to basically, her boyfriend went to Jared. They known each other, I guess, for a year and a half. So who knows what they did for that year and a half?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they didn't really understand each other. But he went to Jared, got the rock. That's enough. So with that rock became a huge, huge wedding. And it's what people get off on. Let's just face it. The dinner party, everything's got to be perfect. Again, two imperfect people, but the party got to be perfect. The wedding got to be perfect. Everything's got to be perfect leading up to it. A lot of money was spent.
Mm-hmm.
Nice honeymoon. They were married for a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
A year and a half. So her father basically took money he probably saved because here again, he wants his daughter to be happy. She probably dreamed about this day when she was a little girl, played with her doll baby, Ken and everything else. And all this for a year and a half. A year and a half. Because he went to Jared and got the rock. He went to Jared and got the
Disney,
rock.
Disney values.
Yeah. And we see that play itself over and over and over again. And here again is pressure. But I'm sorry, as a father, tell your daughter this is all it's not necessary. Hate to say it. Yes, is that pressure, but say that to her. I'd rather give you this money, you put this on a home, put this away for your children's future. For you and him to dress up like a clown, in my opinion, for a few hours, to piss it all away, then a year later, you two not together. I remember, and I'm going to say this because it's funny, because a few years ago, I was taking some pictures, and I was at this bridal shop taking pictures, and I see the what are the bridesmaids come in? They're trying on the dresses and they're moving around and they're doing all these things. And the one of the ladies that worked there, oh, she was just awesome. She's an awesome salesperson. She was just running back and forth and going back and forth. And by the end of the day, I said to her, I said, "You're very good at what you do." She said, "Trust me." You know how many times I want to say to them, "Will you just pick a fucking dress? You're only going to be in it for 2 hours." What all this matters? But she said they bring everybody with them, their mama, their girlfriend, and they can't make a decision. I
Mhm.
laughed hard because in reality, she sees it for what it is. It's really, it's this big day. It's like the Oscars getting ready to come up in a few days. They're going to go on television. They're going to spend all this time promoting. Give the fucking award out to these people. You ain't got to take 5 hours to give it out. Walk up stage, go up these speeches. It's a big presentation over movies nobody probably watched in the first place. Realistically, at the end of the day, we bought into the show. We turned marriage into a circus. We bought into it. All the extra activities that we tied to it has nothing to do with the foundation of marriage. Nothing. That's
Mhm.
why marriage has lost its luster because we've taken something that was given to man and woman that should have been beautiful and we screwed it up. We could talk about pressure. We could talk about this, whatever we want to talk about. I'm stressed out, whatever. Fucked it up cleanly, in my opinion. We have. We fucked it up. We really, we did a disservice to it in so many ways. And so, that's just how I look at it long term because we've taken it, we marginalized it, we made a commercial, and love is love, granted. But I'll go back to what I said a little while earlier. There's no way I'm going to treat somebody better outside and you're here with me. That's foolish. Right then and there it tells me I'm out of order.
Mhm.
I'm off the rail. I claimed, I stood one day in front of God and said, I love this person. Damn. All of a sudden now I'm showing someone else more. I'm giving someone else more. To me, at the essence of that, it's mind boggling. It is. But you know
But
what? Running, I'm
health,
sorry, go ahead.
you're a healthy, healed human. Like, do you know how few of those there are? Everybody's mentally and emotionally bankrupt right now.
But why Mars? Why?
I really feel like social media has a play in it. I do firmly believe that our food and chemicals have a lot to do with that. When I look at, some of my clients and stuff, some of the things that they struggle with, I think there's a lot of different reasons. I was
Okay.
laughing a minute ago when you were like, "We messed it up." Well, you said something else. I'm gonna try and keep it PG, right? Um, I was giggling because when I got married, um, I did not want to get married. I think I've shared this on some of your shows before. I did not want to get married. I had all these other plans for my life, but I didn't. At that time, I had gotten pregnant and I didn't want my daughter to be raised as a daddyless daughter because that had been my experience. And I feel like I felt at the time that a lot of my traumas occurred as a result of that structure, that family structure. And so I made the decision to go ahead and go through with the wedding. Well, I should say I went through with the marriage. I refused to have a wedding. We got married at the Justice of the Peace. I literally wore an outfit that I would normally wear to work. There was no fancy dress. There was no flowers. There was no nothing. Afterwards, us and a few friends went out for pizza and drinks. That was the extent of it. But the reason why I was laughing was because before they did the ceremony, the justice of the peace they had this conversation with us at the time about, this is what it's going to be like. This is, the process. This is what you say. This is what's going to be said. And they did the whole vow thing, and they said, until it said, love, honor, and obey until death do us part. I said, I'm not saying that. And the clerk kind of looked at me like, you have to. Absolutely not. I'm not going to say obey, and I'm not saying until death do us part. And we went round and round and round, and my then fiance was staring at me like, you have got to be shitting me right now. And when I tell you standing 10 toes down on that, by the time we got up there in front of that judge, our vow said love and honor for as long as this union shall last. That's what I agreed
Hmm.
to. I wasn't
Hmm.
agreeing to something that I didn't even want to get married. I'm not signing up till death do us part. You have lost your ever loving mind. I'm not doing that.
Wow.
But I didn't ever intend on getting divorced. But I also wasn't standing before God and making some promise that I was not fully equipped to say that I could keep. We went round and round and round. That lady finally was like, all right, whatever.
You know something, Mars? I look at it too when you say about the healthy individuals or not. And this doesn't apply to, I'm not painting this with a broad brush when I say this. A lot of it's because we're lazy about self improvement.
Yes.
When it comes to self improving who we are and being better, we're lazy. We tend
Mm-hmm.
to rather tell ourselves we're better than what we are than to be better and do something about we know what exists. You know, if you were raised in a dysfunctional family, you know. Nobody got to tell you. I mean, realistic, let's be honest. You
Mm-hmm.
know. You know, there's certain things that might be deficits for you. Why not work on those things? No one should have to basically put your hand behind your back for you to do these things, realistically. But we're too where we want people to accept us for who we are. Just accept me. I've done nothing. Just accept me. My problems should become your problems. No, not really. No, they shouldn't. But I want to, this is a silly question, but I thought of this when you said you object to that. Because for the life of me, I'm not, I'm a man. I'm not saying, there are times I don't feel emotions. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying there's time that I don't come to tears over some things. But this could be part of the Disney phantom. It could be part of the Disney fantasy, whatever. But why do you find women at weddings crying? I mean, it's a simple question. There's some comedy behind it. But why are they sitting there? What is that about?
You better get another ask that question too. Because I
Say
don't
it again.
know. I don't know. You asking the wrong person that question. I don't know. Like, okay, so do you ever watch they have all these okay, so this is my guilty pleasure, toxic truth moment right here. Uh One of my guilty pleasures is I always watch things like there's one show called Love is Blind, there's Say Yes to the Dress, and there's Married at First Sight. I don't watch Say Yes to the Dress as much anymore, but that's mostly I think because I can't find it on my TV and I don't put a lot of effort into it. But the other two are on Netflix, and so they're easy for me to find. And when I tell you hooked on them, every season, binge watch like it's like I'm getting paid to watch the show. And I watch these people. I like to study people. I like to study how people interact. I like to study how people communicate, things like that. It helps me as a counselor. So that's one aspect of watching it. But then I also just have this innate curiosity about relationships because I sometimes feel like I'm such a weirdo and maybe it's just me. Like I don't get it. So that's why I laugh when you ask me that question. Like I couldn't tell you why they cry at weddings. I don't know. I literally don't know. But on the shows, it's just amazing to me, especially on Love is Blind, because the whole concept of that show is you don't see the person. So there's 32, I think, females, 32 males, and, or maybe it's 16, something like that. Anyway, so they go on, all of them date each other in these pods. And so they can't see each other. There's a wall in between. And the dates consist of just sitting and talking. And so it's interesting when you see they're showing the male side, they're showing the female side, they're showing kind of both sides, obviously made for TV, so they give you the spiciest parts, but it's interesting to see body language, posturing, the difference between the males and the females. And then it's also interesting to me, I think one of the most interesting things is because they're all dating the same people essentially initially until you kind of narrow it down to like who you really kind of like. Um, the girls are real secretive. I'm not letting anybody know who I'm dating and this person, and so and then they find their little cliques, and then but they're still trying to keep it a hot secret. And the guys are much more open about it. They're much more like, well, dude, if she likes you better than she likes me, then I wish you the best. They're willing to bow out, and the girls are just absolutely not. And I feel like women, girls, young ladies, whatever you want to call it, are just so set on, like you said, it's the date, it's the experience, it's uh, the wedding of my dreams. They've thought about this for so long, so then they get so close to this opportunity, and now the claws come out.
Mm.
And when you watch them on some of the other shows where they have other cast members and things going to the weddings, they're sitting there boo-hooing at it. And I often watch that like, why are y'all crying? Y'all not up there? And so I can't tell if it's from I'm so happy for her, or it's the culmination of a dream, or I wish it was me, or she finally found her own, or and sometimes it's when he reads the vows, and I think a lot of times like we just have all this mushy connection to the whole experience of getting married, and nobody has any connection to being married and what it takes to manage a marriage.
I wonder if after 60 days of getting married, can people even repeat their vows?
Yeah,
Can they
probably.
literally? I don't think they can.
Mm-mm. And
No, I really don't.
on Love is Blind. So once they pick their person and he proposes typically, which in I think the Love is Blind Germany, they made a point of saying that the women can also propose. The other ones in the other countries don't typically do that. But then they meet for the first time, and sometimes those initial reactions are hilarious, like, oh damn, what did I do?
Mm,
And you can almost tell from their initial reactions, like, yeah, y'all finna struggle. And
mm.
then they send them on a 1 week kind of honeymoon experience at some resort, and half the time they're fighting by day, but
You know,
half
it's interesting.
ask the right questions. They're not asking the questions that you
Mm-mm.
found you really need to know to build a relationship on. They're asking very surface level questions.
Tell me if you ran across this in a period of time that you've been on the face of this earth. A couple that fights like cats and dogs, not getting along. A married couple. Let me make sure I'm clear about that. But they go to renew their vows.
Hmm.
You ain't following the first set of vows. You're not following the first set. What's renewing going to do? Oh, I know. Bring everybody together, dress up again, have cake, have champagne. You're renewing your vows for what? I
Hmm.
mean, to me, that I find that to be hilarious. Come, bring us a gift. Bring us a gift while we renew our vows. We're gonna register here. Dress up, please. Come eat.
Because it's
I
what
know we fight
significance
all the time. Yeah, we're not a happy couple, but come on, renew it with us. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
it's the significance we put on that specific moment. It's the vows themselves, and oh, this is our chance to reset, and we're going to rekindle our romance, and yak 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 yak. No, you're not. You're gonna go do this. You're gonna spend, you know, 10 grand on it at a minimum, and then you're gonna go back to the same crappy behaviors and the same unhealthy, toxic traits that you've always exhibited. And you're going to be right back here a year from now thinking, oh gosh, another 5 years, we can do the renewal again.
I'm again. I think you should patent the idea of term limits. I really do. I mean,
Um,
we got term limits for congressmen, presidents, everything else. Why not term limits for marriage, man? Come on, why not?
way Trump's going, we might not. President terms and all kind of stuff. He's
Oh
fine.
my, my. Marcia, I'm gonna bring this one to an end, man. I love to laugh. So some things I may laugh at that others don't find humor, and laughter is my medicine. So
Same.
I don't laugh. Yeah, I don't laugh to just be laughing. If I see humor in something, I'm there. But I hope at some point marriage starts to regain its luster. I really do, because I think it's a beautiful thing. No, I'm not currently married, but still, I have a fondness in my heart for marriage. I do. I think what it was designed for, what it's put forth for, if it's really worked properly and handled properly, I think it's one of the best things we're given as human beings. So, therefore, I speak on it. I don't have a problem speaking on it. And like anything else, I speak on it fully and passionately. And what I see wrong with it, I'm going to, bring out and highlight. And that's all I probably have done in the past several minutes. Your response.
Um, I don't know. Part of me has a really strong desire to do it again and quote end quote get it right. And then another part of me feels very strongly and equally as strong that it's just not necessary. I've had the experience. It was less than memorable. And but if I had had the opportunity to do it differently and to do it with the information and the experience that I have under my belt now, and what I know, more importantly, what I know about myself now and what I need and desire and what I offer and what I can provide to a partner, uh, and what I know about alignments, then I feel like it would be a different experience. And in that realm, I'm all in. Like I would totally relish in the idea of having that experience and just making, the rest of my days amazing. I still don't know if I would say that in those vows though.
I don't think you would. I don't think you would. I don't think you would. Oh, that's one thing I don't think has changed. I don't think you would. I don't think you would.
Probably not.
All right. All right. As we close this one out, I want to thank again for folks giving us an ear, giving us a listeners. Dr. Marcy Baptiste, I call her Lady Marcy. I appreciate her showing up and always doing what she does, bring it very strong. And again, thank you for giving us an ear. God loves you, and we do too. We'll get together real soon. Take care of yourself.